I was thinking watching these last two games, Joe, that the best story this season for the Toronto Blue Jays is one that we've already completely take for granted, which is the fact that Roberto Osuna, we treat him like he's Mariano Rivera now, right? Like he goes to Gibby goes to him early.
But that's how he wants to be treated too.
But he's 21,
yeah.
and so they're up 8-4, but he's worried. They're worried about giving away a lead like they've given it away. You bring him in a little bit early. Last night, once he comes into the game, game's over. It is extraordinary. And again, it's maybe I'm a little too close to the story in some ways because I spent the time with him in the offseason. But for a kid to be doing that at 21 and to have an airtight season so far at a time when there's all kinds of other moving parts on this team, including who comes into the game before him, is extraordinary. I'm not sure how many precedents there are. No, there haven't been a lot of 21-year-old closers in Major League Baseball, but this guy is doing something that I have never seen before.
Yeah, it's pretty special. And I think, making the comparison to Mariano Rivera, of course, maybe he's not quite there yet, but that's what he's doing. Gibby's handing him the ball, and basically the game's over. That's how good he's been. And it's a pretty nice feeling yesterday once Gavin Floyd, it was almost like everyone's holding their breath in the eighth inning for Floyd to get through it, because if he does, it's over. And, of course, the leadoff single there to Ellsbury, and sure enough, I'm sure there's a lot of Blue Jays fans a little nervous. Floyd gets through the eighth, and you just breathe a sigh of relief because it's Osuna up in the ninth. And the other thing with Roberto, I think, too, through all of these bullpen struggles, the issue has been he's been up an awful lot. There's been a lot of close games where he's had to heat up, and relievers talk about getting hot. And what that means is they're ready to come in the game. Well, when you get hot down there, you throw in a number of pitches. You can almost equate it to throwing an inning. Well, if you get hot for 2 or 3 or 4 days in a row and only pitch one of them, you come in the next day and we all say, oh, yeah, he hasn't pitched since, in 3 days. Well, guess what? He's been pitching a lot more than that. So that's been a bit of an issue. So hopefully that can rectify itself too so that he can get that breather. But, yeah, it's such a weapon. And I continue to talk about that fastball. It really is an electric fastball. Russ has told me several times it's just got an extra gear as it approaches the hitting zone. And you can tell by the swings. You don't even need to see a radar gun and see 95, 97. Watch the swings of the hitters, and most of them are just a little tardy. But then he's got the secondary pitches to go with it. And it's probably the best weapons for any pitcher. When you're a high-velocity guy and you have a secondary pitch, let alone he has 2 of them, and he's also mixed in the odd curveball this year that he's thrown in there. We may see that against this Red Sox team as well. Just a lot of weapons, and they're all very good weapons.
Is there any part of you, Joe, that kind of pines to see him start? Because I know I would love to see him. No. I know it's great what he's doing. But to see him use that repertoire he has and have to pitch his way through a lineup 2 or 3 times, again, we may never see it. He might not ever see it in his career now. But I'd love to see it.
Well, you may not, and I'd love to see it too because he's got 4 pitches. And, when I talked about Aaron Sanchez, and I was always in that camp of him being a starter, not a reliever, and that's the reason why. When you've got that kind of arm, first of all, but the secondary pitches to go with it, that's what starters are, because there's not many of them. It's hard to find good starting pitching. Roberto Osuna, I bet anything he'd go into the rotation right now and be excellent, much like Sanchez. But I think with the issue being so young, he's already had the Tommy John surgery. You got to be very guarded about that. I think in his case that he'll probably stay down there. I'm not sure what the Blue Jays are thinking future-wise, but, you start transitioning. It would take a long time and all that stuff. He's very happy down there. So I think the mix is right. But you're 100% right. He has starters stuff, no question.
Yeah, if this organization takes him out of the closer's role, they need a collective head examining. Because this organization hasn't had a great deal of success with closers. Every team in this division, every series team in this division has a lights-out closer. And you've got a kid who has the makeup. You've got a kid who wants to be Mariano Rivera. This guy asked for the ball yesterday after he struck out Alex Rodriguez because it was his 100th strikeout. I mean, this kid is aware of everything. This is exactly the guy you want. Exactly the guy you want as your closer. And one of the things John Gibbons said, Joe, earlier during the last homestand, which I found interesting, is he said, Roberto is warming up differently now than he warmed up last year. He doesn't take as long to get heated up. I mean, this is a guy who's really studied what you have to do to be a closer. And it's a guy who's, I think, approaching it almost. He's taken almost a craftsman's approach to this. So, man, I hope they leave him in there. I really do. I understand the lure of the repertoire and everything, but if you don't have him close, you're going to spend the rest of the time looking for sorting through the Drew Storins of the world to come up with somebody who can do it. And this organization's going to have enough issues in the next 2 years. I don't think they're going to be wanting to look for a closer because you're going to be replacing your right fielder your designated hitter. You're going to be replacing the guts of your lineup anyhow.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think it's happening. There's no question. I don't think it's happening.
You scared me, you guys. Both of you. Shame on
No,
you.
it's not going to happen.
Shame on
it's
you.
not going to. But the stuff is so good that he could easily be a starter. And, Stephen, your story showed he's mature beyond his years, and there's several reasons why. That was one of the first things we talked about last spring when we saw him is how advanced he was for such a young age. But it's because he's pitching against professionals at 16 years old. He comes from that bloodline, and he's certainly way beyond his years. And now you're already talking about with 1 year's experience at the major league level, he's warming up differently. He sees the game. He's in the bullpen and knows who's coming up and when I might be needed. And the tough part about being that guy is that, one swing of the bat and he's in the game. So he has to heat up, and that's the issue when you're the back end guy. But he's done it very well, and he sure is. And boy, when you can turn to him at the back end of the bullpen, that's one solid piece that's been slam dunk for the Blue Jays this year.